Boker Tov, good morning. Today is Friday, January 28th. Erev Shabbat, Parshat Mishpatim. What does Mishpatim deal with? It deals with all manner of nitty-gritty law. The law about slaves is how we open, and then wrestling people who hurt one another or hurt a pregnant woman or cause a miscarriage, and then all types of possible dangers that my property poses to you or my actions pose to you. The ditches that I leave open, that are left open for someone to trip over, or my ox that gores, the fire that I start. And then from there to the responsibilities that people who are looking after other people's possessions have, and further and further. That's Parshat Mishpatim. And you ask, we wonder to ourselves, why is that? Why is that here in the Torah? Why is it the first topic of conversation, really, after the Aseret HaDibrot, the Ten Commandments, the moment of revelation? And I think we are meant to appreciate something deep about the nature of ourselves and the way we are in the world and the way we are with God through Mishpatim. And I focus us for a moment on the Gemara in Baba Kama, Daf Lamed of an Aleph, page 30a of Baba Kama. Amar Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda said, "Haiman debai the meve chasida." Person wants to be a pious person. Where does piety grow from? So he says, "Lekayem mile dinizikin," then he should really fulfill the matters and the issues that are part of this whole collection called nizikin, damages, tort law, and damages. That's one. Rava Amar mili de avos. Rava says, no, if you want to be a chassid, then you should pay attention to the words and the issues that are discussed in tractate and Pirkei Avot, in the teachings of our fathers. For Amila mili de brachos, and there were those who said, no, the matters that are discussed in tractate Barachot. So what do you have here? Right? What's going on with this? What is the key to becoming a pious person? And so I would have thought, and others have raised this as well, would have thought that the answer would be in one of these other two areas, that you would follow the moral teachings, and the directives of the way in which we engage with one another. Although Pirkei Avos is much more than that, but that's where if you take to heart the lessons of Pirkei Avot, then you will be a chassid. That'll help lead you to piety, to be a real pious person. Or mili de brachos, you might have said a person who's devoted himself to the ritual life of the Jew and the devotional life. Specifically, the blessings that we recite on the foods that we eat, the way we pray and worship God. That's where piety exists. And we would have, I think, naturally gone to one of these two. Either I've sat with the moral teachings and I've become a master of them. I've devoted myself into the world of divine worship, of brachot, matters of brachot. That's where piety is. And then you have the teaching of Rabbi Yehuda. He says, no, you want to be a pious person. You want to define yourself and achieve something religiously significant, then pay attention to mili dinizikin. Wow, that's really fascinating. The matters of torts and damages. So are we here to say that if you're a Jewish lawyer, then that's indeed a sign of your piety? I don't think so. I don't think so. There is a different statement, I think, that's being made to us, and it has to do with the way we see ourselves in the world in which we live and the people around us. And it emerges from concluding for oneself, and a message that I've tried to share at different points, that I say to myself, my place here in this world is in relation to others, and I have a responsibility to others. I have a responsibility to others to not hurt them, to not harm them, to look after the things they ask me to look after, not to harm the people around me. And that's where piety emerges. My sense of responsibility for the other person. And one could have framed Mili Dinazikin differently, right? It would have you might have chosen to say that I'm thinking about, okay, what are my rights in any given situation when my animal is gored by your animal, or I fall and break my ankle in a little pit that you've dug. And yes, it's true that if you're damaged and you're harmed, you can look it up and you can see what what the halacha is, what the law says about what you should be paid, the restitution you should receive. But it's not framed in the context of what your rights are, and that's not where piety comes, by always demanding your rights. Piety comes from society and individuals knowing what your responsibilities are to help ensure that someone isn't hurt by the things that you create in this world, or if God forbid you've harmed somebody else, that you step up and you makayim mili dinazik, and you say, this is on me. Or if the Beit Din says it's on you, you say, I accept the decision of Beit Din, of the court, and I make good. The Gemara actually describes the lead up to this last line before the next Mishnah, and it actually describes Chasidim Harishonim. Chasidim Harishonim, which we sometimes refer to the early pious people, right? So they would be people who we otherwise would talk about the way they would daven and things like that, right? Hayu matzniim kotzotehem uzuchotehem betoch zadotehem. They would make sure if they had hurtful things, shards of glass, pieces of glass, or a brush that could easily catch fire. So they made a determination for themselves, those individuals, that I'm going to have to hide them, put them away from the possibility that someone else will get harmed. They would bury it really deep, so that not just put it in the ground, but buried deep in the ground, so that the macharesha, the tool which you use to turn over the soil, wouldn't get jammed. Rav Sheshet shadi lehu benora. Rav shadi lehu bedagelet. So they would have other places they would put it into the right and throw it into the river, whatever they could do to get it out of harm's way for somebody else. That's the mindset of Chasidim Harishonim, the early pious people. Their focus isn't only on how they daven, or on the pieties of important teachings. I love Pirkei Avos, but primarily, what's my responsibility to my neighbor to help ensure that he's not harmed, and if indeed harm comes to him, where do I step in? If it's from me, then that's Mili Dinazikin. What do I owe? What's my duty towards him? And then more broadly, what is my responsibility to him, even if I'm not the one who caused him harm? How do I step up and take on my responsibilities? Mili Dinazikin. We need to be pious people, and we start there. What is it that God asks of me in relation to the other? Mishpatim comes right after Revelation, because that's where my piety really sits. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom.